Let's spend some time with the analyst for our Atlanta Falcons, Dave Archer, joining us on the waitfor.com hotline. And Arch, man, it's been a crazy offseason so far. Now, we got the draft coming up at the end of the month. Obviously, on Thursday, that first round on the 27th. Friday, Mike and I will be up at the headquarters and hopefully talking to our first-round pick. But tell me what you think about what Terry Fontenot has done so far this offseason.
Well, he's done exactly what he said he was going to do, Carl. You go back to his end-of-the-year press conference. He said we're going to attack every level of this team, and he's done that. Defensive line, linebacker, defensive backs. You look on the offensive side, offensive line, along the wide receiver core, probably the only place he hadn't touched really has been the running back position. Is that a tell that Bijan Robinson is the pick at 8? I have no idea. But he did exactly what he said he was going to do. And when you look at this roster now, this roster is so much deeper with talent than they were just 2 months ago, 3 months ago. If you have an injury at defensive back, can you imagine plugging in a guy that's a former number 1 draft pick? Let's say Casey Hayward is the starter. He goes down and Jeff Okudah comes in off the bench. Or Mike Hughes comes off. I mean, it's unbelievable how much he's adjusted the depth of the team. It's really exciting.
Arch, we said you haven't had this depth on defense since 2017. I talked about Claiborne back in the day or Babineau. You just haven't had these kind of bodies on both defensive line and corner. What move of all the moves in free agency do you like the most?
Well, I don't know that there's one that sticks out any more than another one. Really, Mike, I think that Jesse Bates was a guy that comes in at the safety spot that's made plays in the league. He's been an All-Pro in the league. He's a young dude. He's only 26 years old. You like the guys that you're bringing in on one-year deals that are guys that were highly thought of that, whatever reason, Jeff Okudah couldn't stay healthy in Detroit his first 2 years. Played 15 games last year. Now he's got an opportunity to reboot the system. Does he come in and find what everybody was looking at that made him third overall as a corner for the Detroit Lions? I think that the Onyemata ad in the middle, he's a tough, rough dude that you plug in. Calais Campbell, big guy. I mean, it's hard to pick one guy, to me, that would stick out over another. I think it's the group that he's been able to put together, and I've been really satisfied as a fan, but just marvel at some of the names of the players he's been able to bring in.
Arch, let's talk O-line for a second. It's Dave Archer, analyst for our Atlanta Falcons. It's our Falcon Report, guys. Coming up in less than 10 minutes, we'll talk more about the Hawks' win last night as we move on in the NBA playoffs. Arch, what about you? We retained our own, right? We took care of Lindstrom long-term. You bring back Caleb McGarry. Are you still concerned about the O-line? And if you are, why? Because I know this is still something that Falcon fans are talking about, even though the Falcons kind of took care of their own with this situation.
No, I think they should be. We're talking about two guys that were number 1 picks a few years ago, and so you get those guys back. And Caleb McGarry had a really good year. He had a year that you'd hoped he'd had maybe a couple years before, but in all honesty, he had his first off season of his career where he didn't have something physical going on.
So you feel this guy? Go ahead, Arch. You dropped for a second. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So I just think that you had to secure those two guys because they played well, Lindstrom and McGarry. I think you still are concerned potentially about what the interior of the offensive line looks like, maybe at that left guard position. There's some really good ones in the draft that potentially could be there in round 2. I think that Skoronski, if you were to take him at 8, he's a guy that's going to kick inside. The big kid from Northwestern, he doesn't have long enough arms to play tackle. They'll cook him inside, and he'll potentially be a dominant left tackle. So did he free them? Did what they did in the offseason with securing some of his talent in free agency, that freed them up to where they could attack the offensive line? Certainly, I think if there's one team that the cards are hidden on, it'd be the Falcons because of what they did in the offseason. You have no idea what they're going to do with the 8th pick.
As they said in Top Gun, Carl and Arch, he's a wild card, totally unpredictable. See what we're going to do. Dave Archer's with us here, flies by the seat of his pants. Yeah, and by the way, what about trading down? I know that's something we historically have not done as a franchise because some people don't have some of the linemen as valued as high. And would you be interested in getting more stuff and then using that for more picks?
Well, certainly, Mike. I think it's a possibility if you get to where you feel like if you're looking at edge and the edge players that are being projected obviously Will Anderson is going to go, I would assume, in the top 4 picks of the draft. I think Tyree Wilson is another guy I paid a lot of attention to at Texas Tech doing some Big 12 stuff. He's a dynamic player on the edge. It's a problem at 6'6" with a 7'2" wingspan. Can you imagine trying to throw around that guy, let alone being able to block the dude? So those are the top 2 guys. And then it's kind of a mixed bag as to what you think. Is Miles Murphy a top 10 pick? I've seen some where they don't feel like that. So could you move back in the draft, get another second-round pick, maybe grab a first-round pick for next year, an additional one, and still pick up an edge player? Because the edge class and the corner class are the 2 deepest classes in the draft. And I think you can get guys that are effective, whether it's Will McDonald or Felix Onyedika-Azuma from Kansas State or whoever in the second round that I think could come in and compete to play a lot for Atlanta in the edge.
All right, Arch. I mean, listen, you said it. We've addressed a lot of things in this free agent period. Where is our strength right now when you look at this before the draft? Because it may change after the draft. Where's the strength of this football team as you look at it right now, just from a personnel standpoint?
Yeah, the crazy part about it, Carl, is I think you have to point to the secondary. I don't think that you could, I think that would be the first place it steps up. I like the running back room. I think Tyler Algier is poised to be a big-time running back. Now, that doesn't preclude you from drafting Bijan Robinson, who we just talked about, who I think is if you were going to take the top 3 players in the draft, Bijan Robinson is probably in the conversation, the Texas running back.
Right.
So Will McDonald, Jalen Carter, Bijan Robinson, maybe Christian Gonzalez, the top 3 players from a player perspective standpoint. You might have a shot at 2 of those guys, Gonzalez or Robinson, if you decide to go that route. I don't think they're going to take the running back, but I wouldn't blame them. I mean, if you put this guy on tape, dude can play now.
And this dude could spin it. Dave Archer joins us here, guys, on the waitforit.com hotline. We're getting closer and closer to the draft. Just because, Arch, they did do the interviews with these guys, because obviously you want to maybe create the sense of urgency to maybe get a trading partner. Is there any chance, after all the demonstrative things they said about Ritter, they would ever go quarterback?
Yeah, I don't think you can rule anything out, Mike. As you just said, they've talked to all of them. Now, some of that has to do with they want to get an idea of the makeup of the player, because at some point you may see these guys as an opposition, the opposing quarterback. So to have an idea what the guy's made of, what are some of the things that you took from those meetings, no question. But, yeah, you're sitting there at 8, and all of a sudden the guy that you thought was the best one of the bunch falls in your lap. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility, because there you go. I mean, that's kind of what Terry's done. Give Terry and Arthur credit. I don't think anybody in the league knows what Atlanta's going to do.
Arch, as we look at our division, before this offseason started, everybody was talking about, the Saints and even Carolina, who we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Haven't we moved up in the pecking order just with what we've done in this free agent period as maybe being the team to beat without even seeing what we're going to do, draft weekend?
I think it's certainly you're a better team now, like I said, than you were 3 months ago. You were 7-10 and 1 game away from winning the division. Now, if that doesn't move you up with Tom Brady retiring, I don't know what does. I think Derek Carr is a good acquisition for the Saints. I think he's a good player. I think that they've got a talented core around him. They play defense there, so I think he's got a good group of guys around him. I have no idea what Baker Mayfield's going to be. No clue. But he does have a talented group of guys that he's going to play with. I think it's wide open in the NFC South, and Atlanta's squarely in the middle of winning his division.
Dave Archer's with us. He and Wes Drew Ham with your Falcons call all season long. What about the gap, if you believe there is such a gap between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud? Just break down the quarterbacks, because we spent a lot of time. Is somebody going to fall in love with Anthony Richardson in the top 5?
Well, somebody will fall in love with him, Mike. It only takes one, right?
Right.
Another Florida quarterback told us that story back when he went to Denver. So, and I think everybody can figure out who I'm talking about there. I'm not comparing Anthony Richardson to Tim Tebow, but it's
you just did
a similar story. Yeah. The 2 quarterbacks at the top: Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. Stroud, outstanding player with all the size. He proved himself to me. He did not have a signature game until the Georgia game. And I thought he played at the higher level that I'd seen him play all year against a team that it's as good as it gets in college football on the defensive side of the ball. I thought that was a proving point. Is one game enough for you to feel good about C.J. Stroud with the history of the Ohio State quarterbacks? I'll tell you what, the dude from Alabama is a savant. The guy, if he were 6'3", 210 pounds, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. This would be a hands-down Peyton Manning type selection. The guy understands the game off the charts. How do you manipulate defenders? How to throw guys open? How to move in the pocket? Understanding pre-snap what's going on. I'm telling you, if he wasn't 5'10", I mean, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. He's by far, from a quarterback perspective, by far the best quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, I don't even think it's close. I mean, I'm watching this Peyton Manning thing. Have you seen? I don't know if you've seen this with Peyton and Eli, and it's with their dad, and basically it's all the guys that have gone to their camps over the years. And then now they basically, they show how they were in contact with these guys. And Bryce is, I think, one of the first episodes. And it's just their conversations with him, his approach, his attitude. It's amazing. And I'm with you. Listen, I think if Carolina doesn't take him, they're foolish. If he's not the first guy off the board. It's Dave Archer, guys. He's the analyst for our Atlanta Falcons as we talk Falcon football with you. Dave, we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Draft night Thursday, the 27th. Mike Conti, Wes Durham, and yourself all over at Atlantic Station for that first round. It's always fun, the anticipation, the energy, because, as you said, Falcon fans just want to see where this thing's going to go, and it can only get better. So great job as always. Good talking with you, Dave.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Carl. I'm surprised you let Michael come on with all the hubbub he caused at Dollar Hot Dog Night. I'm a little surprised.
Hey, man, by the way, I've always thought, why can't you put the tube steaks in the T-shirt gun? To me, they do that in Milwaukee, Arch. I mean, that's a lot of fun right there.
Great goal.
Yeah, big wiener coming at you at 100 miles an hour.
How did you enjoy Chestnut get out of the building?
Arch, man, take care. We'll talk soon, brother.